in. Come on in, my friends. I am thrilled that you are here today to do a little watercolor painting with me. My name is Dina, and I am your guide today. Now, my friends, it does not matter if you are in the classroom, maybe you're in the lounge, or even watching a replay of this. You have a TA that is there to help you at any time. You just need to send them a message in the chat. And of course, if you're live with me today in the classroom or the lounge, we have a fabulous TA named John. John can help you guys with whatever you need, whether it's maybe you can't hear something or see something on that end, just send him a message in the chat. Now, as for me, my friends, I love questions. There's no question you can't ask me at any time. So don't ever feel like you're going to interrupt. And we do have a large class today, so I will ask that all of you just make sure your microphones are turned off. Sometimes we forget, we have conversations in the background, just for your privacy and to keep our class flowing. Now, what I'm going to do first is share my screen with you. And with this screen, I'll go over supplies. I'll talk to you about a lot of different stuff, but then we're going to come back and paint because that is why you are here. So this is called Watercolor Studio Autumn Landscape. This is a class for beginners, but even if you have a little bit more skill, you're still going to get some stuff out of this. Now, this is a generic picture that they put on the website. If everybody could mute their mic, that would be fabulous. Thank you. This is not what we're painting today. This is just how they catalog it. I will show you what we're going to do. So what do you need in order to participate? You're going to need some watercolor paper. And I really recommend watercolor paper. We're going to use a lot of water today. If you don't have any watercolor paper, just try to get the heaviest paper that you have. Of course, your watercolors, 2 cups of water. We're going to rinse in one and try to keep the other one clean. And I'll say try because I'll get it messed up. I always do. Paintbrushes of various sizes. And you are going to want a fairly large one today. And I would recommend a flat one if you have it. If you don't, get the biggest one that you possibly have. Some paper towels, a pencil with an eraser. We're going to draw one line. And I highly, highly recommend that you tape down your work today, if at all possible. Again, we're going to use a whole lot of water, and that paper is going to want to buckle. And then a hair dryer or a heat gun, if you want to move ahead a little bit faster than what I'm doing, because we're using a lot of water today, our paint isn't going to dry as quick as some of our other projects. So what are our objectives? Well, we're going to talk about how to pick the right colors for fall. Although I'm going to be very honest with you, if you want to paint these trees that we're going to do in colors that are not fall colors, that is fine. This is your artwork. I want you to enjoy it, so you're going to get to pick the colors that you want. We're going to talk about how to paint some trees with some leaves with some very simple strokes. This is a very loose painting. And then we're going to talk about how to create some depth with light and shadow. And these are what we're going to do. Now, this is the same painting, but there's 2 ways to do it. The one on the left is a much looser painting with a lot more white space. And I've even put some branches in there. The one on the right, same painting. We'll talk about how to get these 2 later, but I just want you to get them in your head. The one on the right is a much tighter painting with a lot deeper and brighter colors. So you're going to be able to do whichever one you like. All right, that is enough talking. Let's come back to my face and we're going to create. Remember, you can get help at any time by asking me or putting it in the chat. And Kathleen has an issue with her sound. If you can help her with that, that would be fabulous. All right, guys. So here are what we're going to do. Now I'm doing this on a 9x12 sheet. And I'm doing it on the entire sheet. I'm not cutting it in half. Of course, you can make it as small as you want or as big as you want. The first thing that we want to do, and you can see here that I've taped this down, I need to spotlight my hands. Give me 1 second and I will show you these again. Okay, here we go. So here are the 2 that I was talking about earlier. They're on 9x12. You can make them long or you can make them small. It is up to you. Now, if you look at these, this is the one that has a lot more density to it, so everything's kind of packed in. This one is a much looser one where I've put some branches in the white space, but you don't need to make that decision right now. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is take our painting and we want to mark a horizon line. Let me get these out of the way. The horizon line, when you're doing a landscape, and I want you to put your paper in landscape, that's where it's long from left to right. We're going to make a dividing line, like a horizon line. Now, we don't want to do it right at center. We want to go just above center to mark this one. So take your pencil, you can use a ruler, you can use a straight edge, whatever you want to do, lay that down, go just above center. It doesn't have to be a lot, just like a quarter of an inch to a half an inch, and make a line for your horizon. I'm going to do that right now. I have one on there, but I think I want to go a little higher up. If you don't have a ruler or a straight edge, just kind of sketch it on there. It's not that big of a deal. And then if you have your eraser, let's erase a little bit of it. And that we want it kind of like a little ghost image so that the pencil isn't showing through, but so that we can still see where it is. Okay, so that's all we have to draw today. Now I'm going to get this out of the way because I always get paint all over everything if I'm not careful. We're going to mix some paint colors, so let's do that together. I'm going to get my paints out here. It doesn't matter what kind of paint you have. We're going to mix a yellow, we're going to mix a red, and we're going to mix an orange. Those are our first colors. So the way that we're going to do this, because we want it to have this really melted butter consistency, let's grab some water on our brush and just kind of put it on our palette. Now, use whatever you can for a palette. Something plastic or glass is best. And then I'm going to grab some red. I'm going to go right into my well. If you have not sprayed down your paints, you need to do that before you start. Go ahead and do that as much as you can right now. And so I'm going to mix this so it's nice and buttery. It's like I took some butter and let it melt right before I put it on my popcorn. Okay? Now this is a pretty bright red that I have right here. And if you want to kind of mellow it out just a little bit to make it a little warmer, I want you to grab a little bit of green. I'm going to put it right here. And you can add a little bit of green to your red to warm it up just a little bit. Those are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. If you water it down too much, grab some more. If you put too much green in it and it goes brown, add a little more red. If it's not enough, add more green. You can also grab a test strip and always test out your colors before you start if that's something that you want to do. I like to usually do that. With this painting, not so much is it that important to me today, but I kind of want to show you how to do it. Now, the next color we're going to do, I said, was an orange. So we're going to do the same thing and grab our orange. Now, my orange is very bright. Oh, obnoxiously bright. Look at that. I don't want to do that orange of a tree. And so what I'm going to do is add its complementary color. We did green to red. Let's do blue to orange. So I am going to come over here and grab a little bit of my blue and put it right there. Now notice I put it over here on the side because if I go right from my well to here, I will turn this brown or gray. So I'm going to pick up a little blue, and that's just going to mellow out that orange. If it goes too brown or gray, just add that orange back. If you put too much water in it, you can always grab some more from your well. And then we are going to do a yellow. Now, you can go with a bright yellow, or if you have a warmer yellow on your palette, you can do that as well. So you might have a cadmium yellow, which is a little bit brighter. This is a brighter yellow over here. But I'm going to warm this up a little bit by using this other yellow that I have, yellow ochre. And if you don't have a yellow ochre, you could add a little orange to it, a little red, or even a little bit of brown. But these are our main colors for our first group of trees. We also want to do another tree that is green, and that's going to be an evergreen tree. So I'm also going to mix up a little bit of green. I have green over here. I got to get out. If your green is obnoxious, add a little bit of red. And what that will do is kind of mellow out your green just a little bit. You could always add a little bit of blue in there. And then I want to have 2 shades of green for this first time. So I'm going to grab another thing of this green, but I want to have 2 different hues. So I want one that's a little brighter and one that's a little lighter. You don't need to have different brushes for each color today. Although for your evergreen, you might want one that's a little more pointy. So I'm going to put a little bit more red into this one so that I can make it a little bit of a deeper green. Okay, this is a great example. I put way too much red in there, so I've turned it brown. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more of this green and pull the green back into it. Okay, and I'll show you these. So I have this deeper green right there and a lighter green. I just don't want you guys to focus too much on color, like doing it right or wrong today. Just play, have a good time. Being exact with this kind of takes some of the fun out of it, I think, of just playing. Okay. One other color we need to get ready is a blue. And this is going to be the blue for the water. And you don't need a whole lot of it. So I'm going to make up just a little bit of this blue right here. Now, this blue that I have is so bright. I love this blue, but for my lake, it might be a bit much. This is going to be for our lake, by the way. So if it's too blue, add its opposite color, orange. So I'm going to grab a little bit of orange. And just add that. Every time you see my hand go off of the camera, it's usually because I'm rinsing out my brush. A little bit more water in there. It's a little bit more mellowed out blue. I'll show you just by adding that orange. Look at the difference. That's originally the color. And by adding a little bit orange, I just mellowed it out a touch. I do teach a watercolor 103 class, which is all about color. So if you really like color, or you're really liking watercolors, I suggest taking that series. It's really good. It's all about color theory and how to mix colors. Okay, I'm going to move this back out of the way. Are there any questions? John, I think someone in the chat might need your help.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. All right. Just looking to see if there's any questions, guys. I got brown on my fingers, so you're going to have to give me 1 second. Or I will have brown all over everything. Okay, here we go. Now comes the fun part. So what we're going to do is paint really loose today. And what I'm going to do is dip my brush in my water, and then I'm going to paint. I'm using a size 8 round today, but for this first set of trees, it does not need to be that pointed. So don't worry about that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip and I'm going to grab color. If you want to watch me first, and then you can start. So I'm getting water and I put this all in here. See how I'm getting that? I got water on my brush, and now I'm going to come here, and all we're going to do is lay down color. And I'm laying it down in this tapping motion. And I'm thinking about the fullness of a tree. I am going to leave some white space. I'm grabbing a little bit more water. I felt like that was a little too that buttery. So go ahead. You can start doing this when you're ready. There's nothing wrong that you can do here except not try. Okay. I'm leaving some white space. You can also grab another color. So maybe you want to get some of your orange, and you can tap that orange in there. We're going to just let them all bleed together. Come all the way down to that line. You can even add a little bit of your yellow in here if you want to, or just plain, but do leave some white space. With this painting, we're going to do at least 2 layers, but you can do as many as you want. So the 2 different paintings, one had 2 layers and one had probably 5 layers. And then next to it, do another tree. Same way, just make it a different kind of size. So I'm going to come in here with a yellow now. Doesn't matter what color you guys do. And I'm going to do a tree right next to it. And they're going to bleed together, and that's okay. You can do these trees as big as you want, as small as you want. You can have little things that are poking out here and here. They're just play. The best way to learn watercolor is to play and enjoy the process. I'm going to grab another little bit of orange maybe and put some of that orange in there. I also have demo videos that will go out with the notes at the end of class, guys. And so if you miss something, if you want to do it again, if you're just here to watch today, you can do this. As long as you have access to the platform and to my notes, you can watch this at any time. Now, there's a couple ways to do this painting where you just speed through this first process and then go to the next step, or you can take your time. And I'm going to kind of talk to you about both here in a minute. Now, the next tree that you can add in, and I don't want to speed you along, so take your time. You can just kind of listen and do your thing. I am going to switch to a brush that has a really nice point on it. And it's the same size, it just has a nicer point. Not absolutely necessary, it's just what I like. And we're going to do an evergreen. So I'm going to use my green. Now, in watercolor, start light and go to dark. So whichever green that is lighter, you're going to start with first. So I dipped my brush in the water, and then I grab my paint, and now I'm going to start this tree. This tree is so fun and so easy. You lay down that middle part first, and then at the top, you're just going to make like a little bit of a V. I'm using the very tip of my brush. I love this tree because it's all about having a very shaky hand. And we're going to make it an A shape of a tree. So I'm coming in with my branches at an angle this way. And I'm just filling them in. Don't care if all this is going to bleed together. Does not matter right now. This is our base layer. I'm just letting my brush dance around, kind of coming up to that little crunk in the middle, but not worried about it. Now let's do this side. Remember, trees are not perfect. So don't worry about it being this perfect tree. That's when we get into some hyper realism. This is just a nice loose painting. Now, just like we did with our other trees, we wanted to kind of layer in another color. So what I'm going to do is grab the darker that darker green that I mixed up. And I can just kind of come in here and touch that in too. Leaving white space, just shaking that hand, letting that brush just dance across the page, and we don't worry. We absolutely don't worry. Just play. We are entering a season of, where things get a little crazy time-wise, or too much going on, or not enough whatever it is. It can be a hard time. So we're just going to use this time to relax and enjoy. And that's all you have to do to that tree. So what I want you to do now is go ahead and finish out your row. Finish out how many trees you want to do. You could do the rest of them all evergreens if you want. You could do them all short trees, tall trees, wide trees, tiny trees. It does not matter. So I'm just going to come in and add some more. Just playing around with height. You can think about, one, that's one color more at the bottom instead of them all together. So it looks like there's more trees behind here. You can do that. Just leaving some white space. So I'll take that orange, maybe just put some orange at the top. So it kind of looks like maybe there's another tree here, or a set of trees, or you can blend them all together. There's no wrong answer today. I'm going to do another evergreen in here. If you run out of paint, you'll just make more. We're not worried about everything being this perfect shade right now either.
Excuse me, Dina.
Yes.
Yeah, Gail want to
Oh,
know
I
what.
see that.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Hey, Gail. So what is mine taped to? This goofy thing is an old piece of linoleum tile. Um, when we moved into our house, the people before it had done a lot of home improvement, if you want to call it that. Although I don't think it's home improvement. I think it was like stuff I had to fix. So there were boxes of these tiles. And being an artist, I just used them. So it's an old 12 by 12 linoleum tile. But you guys, you can buy things that are pre-made to tape your work to, or you can get creative. Use cardboard. Cardboard works great to tape to. So, like the back of my watercolor paper, after I'm done with that, I just recycle those and use those to paint on. I just bought a bunch of masonite because I'm tired of these tiles. And so the tiles will be discontinued and we're going to use masonite. But you can use just about anything that, isn't gonna absorb too much water, which cardboard doesn't absorb the water at all. If you have watercolor paper, if you laid down plain like copy paper, then it wouldn't work so much. But it's a hideous tile. That was a long answer, I know. I'm going to finish this out with one more tree. I kind of like the idea of framing it with the red. Just an opinion, just what my artist brain tells me. You guys listen to your artist brain. It's that voice that as you're painting sometimes says, well, what if I did this instead? And sometimes your voice is kind of hidden. You got to find it. It's there. You just got to know when to listen. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow, I think, to that one. Now, what's great about this, and I just want you to keep painting. I'm not moving on yet. We have some time, but I am going to talk to you about a few things. What's great about this with this painting is you've learned to do a couple of different trees already. You've learned at least kind of two styles to do a tree. So maybe you want to do this tree again and just do it with evergreens. Or maybe you want to play around with doing different kinds of trees. And I'm going to show you a couple of things. So keep painting. And then maybe just look up if you want. But I am going to send you pictures of everything. So if you'd rather just focus on what you're doing, don't worry. Um, a lot of us, the holiday seasons come up and maybe you're wanting to paint a card or something like that. Why not do something like this where you do all evergreens, but paint them in really fun colors? You're getting ready to learn how to do this lake. We'll learn that in a minute, but I'm just showing you. Play around with the something you've already learned. Start to develop your own style and looking at, I know how to paint this. How could I turn it into something else? So this could be great for a card, and you don't have to do it in those bright colors. I'm going to send you this extra thing, which is not what we're doing today, but it's how to paint a tree with branches. So if you wanted to do just a set of regular trees, you'll have that. It's kind of the same thing with this just laying in color style. So you can do that. I'll also give you this step-by-step instruction guide on how we did this tree, especially if you want to do it a little tighter where it's all standing by itself. That's a good. Becky says she tapes hers to the back of a clipboard. Yes, that's a great idea. You could also paint this painting something like this, where you play around with different tree styles. This is great to do as a warm-up activity, just to kind of play and kind of get some ideas in your head of how to do different things. You can see this is a very different evergreen than this is. This is painted with a much bigger brush. And then the last one is to play around with how much water you use on this. This is what we would call more of an abstract, very loose painting where you do the same steps, but you might lay down water first or double the amount of water that you are using so that everything just kind of leads together and just has its own little party on your paper. I love that one too. So this will give you a bunch of different things that you can do if you want to play some more. Smooth serving trays. That is a great idea too. Yes, never overlook clearance. Never overlook clearance. It's absolutely fabulous. So the next step, and we're not there yet, we still have a minute or two before I have to go to the next step, is the next step we're going to do is this pole. And we're going to do this with a larger, flatter brush. If you have a flat brush, it's going to be easier than if you have a round brush, but you can still use your round brush. If you have one bigger than this, even better. This is the one that I have. This is not even that great of a quality of brush, but it does what I need it to do. Okay, I use this for flat washes, but I don't use it a lot in watercolor. And what we're going to eventually do is take this brush and put water on it and pull down and let all that beautiful color that we painted on here bleed. And then we're going to come in and do some water and things like that. But I still want to give you a little bit more time to keep painting. Thank you, Gail. I'm looking back at y'all's messages just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Very good. I will say, just to kind of plug some other stuff while we're here, is that in December, I am teaching a whole class on card designs for the holidays. And I've incorporated several different generic holiday cards, Christmas card, as well as a Hanukkah card. And then another one that, like I said, you could use for anything. There is a winter tree one that I did last year that will come back up. And all the other regular watercolor classes will still be around as well, but I kind of wanted to tell you about that one because I know some of you would like to do some holiday cards, and I think it would be really fun for you. So I don't want you to miss out on that.
I'm really looking forward to those, Dina, because I'd like to try to paint cards for my grandchildren that are married. So looking
Absolutely.
forward to that.
Oh, so good. Yes, you'll be able to. You will be able to. Hmm. So if you didn't tape down your work, you're probably starting to feel the buckle on it on the paper. Even mine is taped down and it still buckles. The better your paper, the less it buckles. And I have pretty decent paper. It's not the best quality, but it's pretty good quality and it still will buckle. The thing that drives me crazy about that is how when it buckles, it makes these little hills and valleys. And so your water will settle sometime in those valleys and it will change the way that your artwork looks, but that's okay. It's not the end of everything. I just kind of want you to be aware of how paper quality does matter. And of course, as you get better at something, you up your game. And so you go, okay, I think I can spend a little bit more on this. The other thing is to think about is rarely with the classes that I teach do we use an entire sheet. A lot of times I will cut things in half or even quarter size. I do that a lot with my holiday cards. So you can get four out of one sheet, which is a nice way to think about conserving paper. But it's also a great way to start learning to paint. I think sometimes painting really big scale is making things a lot harder. I think we think that painting small is harder, but it's actually really not. So that's just my suggestion. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next step, and I really want you to keep doing what you're doing. So if you're not ready to move to the next step, just keep painting. Remember, you can watch those videos. But the first thing that we need to do is make sure that on this line, we have enough paint laid down so that we can pull it. And we want it to be a little wet. Mine has dried quite a bit. Now, I got finished with mine a little bit faster, so I could have pulled it. But since I didn't, then I want to show you the next step. If yours is pretty wet, then you don't need to do this step. If it's dry like mine, then we need to. So what I'm going to do is come in with the base color on each one of these. And I'm just going to lay down some more paint. But we need to do this kind of fast. So if you guys will kind of just watch for a second, I'm going to just do one for you. I'm going to come in with that red, making sure I have enough over here ready to go. And because we're going to pull this, it's okay if the colors don't match exactly. So I have this brush ready. Now, I don't want you to get worried and think, oh my gosh, here we go. This is scary. It's not scary. It's fun. Okay, so I'm going to come in with that red and making sure that I get right on top of that line. If you go over the line a little bit, it's okay. So see how I'm really putting it right there? I'm dropping that in so it's nice and wet. And I'm going to go across my whole painting. But then I'm going to take this brush, okay, and I'm going to dip it in the water. I'm going to scrape it on the side of my water dish so it's not dripping. Then I'm going to come up to here and I'm going to lay it down and I am going to pull downward, okay? Then I'm going to dip again, come in here and pull downward, all right? And then dip it again and pull downward. Now, you can just keep going and not dip it every single time, especially if it's, the same color. But as you move across, you're going to want to probably wash it out or everything's going to be that bright red. So what I want you to do, instead of doing it one at a time like I just did, and that's going to look a little weird, go ahead and go across your painting, laying in that color. So I'll do my yellow orange next, and then my green. And yes, when you get to this green, don't worry about painting the exact little squiggly lines that you did. Just get the color laid down. Here comes the orange. And if you want, you can skip over to the next orange and lay that down so you're not having to wash out between brushes. Again, if it's already pretty wet, don't worry about doing it right there. I come in with that green now. And you can see I'm just going to kind of lay that green down. Not so worried about it because we're going to end up coming over the top of this anyway. And I'm going to grab my red and do a little red right here, and then I'll do my yellow. Just like that. And then I'm going to come in with my big brush. Dip, pull, or dip, scrape, pull. Think that in your head. Dip, scrape, and pull. If you don't have enough water on there, you need to get a little bit more on there. Now, here in a second, I'm going to go to the next step just because we don't want it to dry. I can always back up and help you again. This is the most fun part about watercolor, is just pulling it and letting the water just do what it wants to do.
Dina, the amount of water, you just want it just enough to glisten, right?
Yes. However, if you feel like it's not pulling it enough, then you want a little bit more. So I do have some puddles here. I do have some puddles. So it's okay if you put a little too much.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. And then after you do that, guys, before this dries, we're going to start going back and forth with just water. Now, I don't want it to be so much that I'm puddling anymore, but if I do, that's okay. Down here is wet. Now, as I move up towards what already is wet, I'm not going to dip anymore, and I'm going to go in one direction and pull it across. I'm also using a lighter touch. Oops, I hit my camera. Then as I get up to here, a very light touch. Then we're going to lay in some little things of our blue. We're not going to paint the whole thing blue. We're just laying in some color. Just like that. You can do a little bit up here. Just not too much. You don't want to just pull all that beautiful stuff you did off. So I'm just doing this. Now I'm doing this with my flat brush only because it was in my hand. If you want to switch back to your round brush, that's fine. Don't overwork it and don't worry about it too much. If you come in and lay down a huge strip of color, and I'm going to do that for you real quick so you can see what to do. So let's say I come in with that really bright blue and I lay that down and I go, that's way too much. Rinse out your brush. Just rinse it out and pull some plain water across it and it will be fine because everything is still very wet on your paper. Notice I'm not going up here too much. I'm playing down here a little bit more. And then up here, I might just lay a little bit in, just kind of touching it in. Now, all this is wet, so it's going to continue to move until it's dry. And what's cool is he's done all the hard stuff.
Should this be flat or upward?
Flat or upward?
Yeah. Should it be flat on the table or do you prefer having it at an angle?
I lay all of mine flat. And that's because if I were to tip it upwards, things will run on me, especially on this one. That's a good question. I probably should have covered that earlier. So thank you for asking that question.
Well, I'm not working with you because I really have to go back a lot. There's questions and I need more
Sure.
help, but I'm learning just watching for my first time.
Good. And remember, there's videos, and you can stop and
Yes,
start
I'm
those
looking
videos.
forward to that.
Good, good. So yes, that's a great question. I work flat. If you want to work at it more of an angle, you want to work with less water. And with what we're doing today is more water. So flat is better. Great question. Guys, don't hesitate to ask those questions because it makes me think too about things that I just didn't even think about.
Well, we're here because to get you back to that. I understand your professionalism just sometimes, although you're doing a great with, but I had a question. I didn't
Sure.
take out my watercolors per se in tubes. I had these blocks, which is not working. So I'm spending this time watching you and learning.
So the blocks, you want to, and since we're kind of at a pause, I'll just tell you this, is so I work with tubes that I put into my little wells, and I let them dry out completely. So they do act like the blocks. However, everybody, you need to spray down your watercolors. I would say at least 15 minutes before you start. If you don't spray bottle, you could do it with like a little dropper bottle like
Sure.
this, or with your brush. And you want to put those in there so that they get really nice and juicy. That's called charging your paint.
For blocks
That's
only or for tubes as well?
so for tubes, you squirt, it depends how you use them.
Sure, sure.
So for example, let me grab a tube real quick. Well, I can do this. So when I was grabbing my green, it's because I was out of green, so I had to use a tube, and so I have it right here. So you can just put it right there, and as
Sure.
long as it's wet,
Yeah,
all you have to do, I can put a little water there, grab a little bit, and do
Yeah.
that. Now,
Yeah.
if it's a block, you have to wet it down.
yeah.
But if this was dry, this would be just as hard to get activated without the water. So I want to make sure that if it's dry, that I put the water on there.
Do you also tend to keep these plates with the colors so that when you use that color again, you can use that?
Sometimes, yes. So I do a lot of teaching and, my own watercolor. So I'm having to clean them a lot. But yeah, I will leave them there. If I can use them again, I will.
They look like yogurt tops and stuff. So you're giving me so many ideas just by watching you.
Good. Yeah. I have lots of plastic tops
Yes.
that I keep for everything. So
Good.
yeah. Yeah. So the next step, and I don't want to rush you, is you have to let it dry. That is the hardest part sometimes, is letting things dry. This, the next step, guys, has to be 100% dry, or at least 75%. Because if I came in and started laying color down again, it's going to start bleeding out into my lake, and it's not going to look good. So I do need to let it dry. So while you're still painting, because I still want you to see some things, is I kind of want to go to the next step, but we have to let these dry. Now you can let it dry naturally, or you can use a hair dryer or a heat gun. I do have a heat gun, and it's a smaller heat gun that I really like that I can just put on here. But there's something nice about saying, you know what, maybe I should just relax and let it dry and go make myself a cup of tea, go for a walk, whatever it is that you want to do. But sometimes that's hard. So either make it dry or let it dry, one of the two. So I'm going to move this out of the way for a second, just so I can kind of talk about this next step. So this is one that is like the one that I just did, but I kind of started working on it. I think I did this last time I had class and I taught this. I just want to go to the next step. So this would be the first step done. And so now what we can do is start thinking about layering. And I'm going to show you two different ways. So don't get confused. I wouldn't do it the same way on the same painting. And I kind of already did it on this orange tree. I'm going to do it on this red one. So I still have my red, but now I want to mix up a little bit of brown. And that's because I want to add a little bit of a shadow. Now you could do a shadow with a green on your red because that will turn it brown. But then I want to do it to every tree. So I'm just coming in and doing this brown. The other thing is you want to make sure that your paint is very syrupy. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint. The other thing I might want to do is brighten it up just a little bit. Okay, make it a little bit stronger in value. And then I'm going to come in here and lay down some more color on top, but I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I can also think about, do I want it behind this tree? So I might paint around it. Now I don't have this tape down right now because I just grabbed it. Okay, this one I'm going to do kind of loose, making sure I get at the bottom and over here on the side. And then putting that brown in there as a shadow. So I'm going to grab some brown and just think about, okay, the sun is here. Where do I want a shadow? It'll be at the bottom. Again, you could do green as your shadow as well. And then leave these nice white spaces in here. Okay. So this is just kind of tightening that up just a little bit. And then where you have white space, if you want to come in and take your brown, even though it's not dry, there's something really joyous about doing stem or your branches this way, is I'm going to take that brush and where there's white space or lighter space, I can just do a couple little tree branches in here. Nothing too extensive. And yeah, it's going to move and go right into what I just painted. But it looks kind of cool that way because it looks like they're not separate, but they're together, especially with this style of painting. It works very well for this. Okay. So what I did on that section, just to kind of show you up close. So I just came in with my brush and just did a little bit of tree like that. Nothing connected, or you can connect them, but nothing too extensive. Just some little marks. Just some little marks. Let me make them a little bigger so you can see what I did. I didn't make them this big, but that's kind of the idea. But I did it with the tip. Just kind of put those in where the white space was. Now that's if you want it nice and loose. Let's say you want to do a tree that is a lot thicker, and I'll do that here on the orange one. I do want to thicken up my paint a little bit more. So I'm just adding some more orange so that it's a nice thick. It doesn't have as much water in it. And then what I'm going to do is just lay down more. So I'm going to cover up those white spaces a little bit more. Okay. I'm covering up those white spaces. Maybe going to add some more color. Going to add that brown in there as well. Grab some of that yellow. So it's just thicker. This is just going to be a thicker application is all I'm doing here. Let me grab some of that brown and do the same kind of thing and let it dry, which is what I did over here. So this one is this, but dry. Now I can leave it like this, or I can say, you know what, I want more. I want more on this. And so I'm going to come in and do it again. And I'm going to get that orange paint that's nice and thick. And you can go right out of the well even. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to lay down some more. And I'm just going to keep building this up with as many layers as I feel like doing. More. I want more on this. And so I'm going to come in and do it again. And I'm going to get that orange paint that's nice and thick. And you can go right out of the well even. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to lay down some more. And I'm just going to keep building this up with as many layers as I feel like doing. But I'm still doing that nice light touch, just laying it in there. Just like that. Okay, and that's how you do it. And you can keep building those layers. So this is kind of option one, nice and loose, where you want to paint in some branches. Option 2 or 3 is start layering in. And you can get those to be as really, oh, it's just so fluffy the more layers you add. So you get a lot more choices there. Now, as for your green tree, your evergreen, same kind of thing. You may want to mix up a third color of green. You could make even a darker green if you wanted. Add in a little bit darker to this. And then all I'm going to do is the same kind of technique. Okay, just doing the dancing brush. You could choose also to wait and let the ones next to it dry so you don't get the bleed if you don't want it. If you like the bleed, just let it happen. Also making sure to kind of clean up the bottom of this. And then also going in the front, doing that little shaky hand move in the front will make it look like it's a little bit more full. And you can leave white space in here, or you can cover this whole thing and not have any. It is your choice. You'll get both of those pictures in your notes so you can kind of look at them. But I do encourage you, if you like doing this, to do it both ways. Try it with different colors. Go really muted, go really deep reds. Just play around with it. Even do it with blues. Just experiment and have a good time. Okay, and so that is how you can finish this off. But remember, you have to let it dry. Also, in the video, I do this thing. Let me see what I did with it. It's right here. I'm going to come back to these originals really quick and get this one out of the way. Hopefully, you're still painting and having a joyous time. Is there some ripples on the water and a little line right here? And that is on both of these. That's in the video, guys. It's just done with Payne's Gray and my little brush, just putting a little bit of a line in here and then some little, little lines to show that the water's moving. Also in the video is how to do your sky, which is very easy. It's just taking your blue. I also talk about how to add some clouds in there by removing it with a paper towel. Super, super easy. But what we covered today is the hardest part of this. And so that has been accomplished by most of you. If not, you have your game face on, you're ready to go and try this on your own. So what I'm going to do really quick, my friends, is share my final screen with you. Can you believe class is already over? It just goes so quick. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more. Now, I don't know if you've ever taken my class, but I always stay late. So if you're in the classroom and you want to show off your work, you can do that. We love to share work. You can ask me more questions. I can show you a couple more things if you want. If you're in the lounge and you want to do that, hop in here real quick. But I'm going to do a summary really quick. What did we do? We talked about how to make colors for this. We learned 2 very simple trees that you can even expand out and make that into 3 or 4 different learning possibilities. And we talked about how to create some depth with light and shadow by playing around with browns and other colors and our complementary colors. So what's next? Well, when class is over, give me a little bit of time and I'm going to email you my notes. In my notes, I talk about everything we did today. I have those video. I think there's 4 video links that you can watch demos on of what we did today. I also have a supply list of all the supplies that I like. I don't like spending a lot of money. So nothing on my list is too crazy expensive. And I do encourage you to look at that. Also at the bottom of those notes has all the classes that I teach on Get Set Up. And you can just click on those. And if I'm teaching them, you can just book them if they're live. If they're not, I think you can still book them that way. And then the last thing is to give me feedback. Feedback is so important to me, guys. It's how I get better at what I do. I write down lots of ideas that you guys have. Maybe you're thinking about things for the future and what you'd love to learn to paint, or maybe even a different art form. Maybe I know how to do it. Maybe I don't. I want to make sure the content that I'm bringing here is the stuff that you guys want to do. So we're going to come back to my face. And I want to say thank you to every single one of you. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a time of year where things can get a little difficult, a little bit crazy. And I think taking an hour out of your time, out of your day to do something really healthy and good for yourself
A
is so
pleasure.
important. And I love art. I absolutely love it. And it is something that kind of grounds me and brings me back to just being me. So
I have
anyway, I want
an
to say
iPad. Will I get all this on my iPad?
give me, or you're in the classroom. Hang on one second. Let me let
Oh,
everybody go, and then I will answer
sure.
your
I'm sorry.
question.
Yes. There might be other
Yes,
iPads.
there are other iPads. I can guarantee you that. Okay, everybody. So thank you, John. You are a fabulous TA. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, everyone. If you're in the classroom and you want to hang out a little bit longer, we'll do that. If not, bye, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.